Hi, in today's episode, we have Rudrani Chhetri, also called Anarkali, of Vikas Khanna's film Colors. I remember leaving the hall with a tight choke in my heart when my Anarkali was murdered. Rudrani is a transgender who's an active voice in the trans rights LGBTQ, and she runs a modeling agency for trans women. She has a huge list of many achievements, which I don't think is going to be enough for me to complete in the introduction. We will hear her tell us. She also runs a trust called Mitr, which works towards issues faced by the marginalized in society. So, welcome, Rudrani, in today's episode. But before we start, please tell me, when you played Anarkali, did you go into your own life experience to essay the role with so much realism that, in that entire film, Anarkali stayed back with me? Tell me about it.
Okay, Mohua, first of all, thank you so much for having me. And well said that. Coming to Anarkali, see, what I wanted to do always, I always identify myself as an artist, but my work is something like, which occupies me and I cannot, get much of a time. But when Vikas Khanna was looking for Anarkali, and I took two people for audition, and they both audition, and someone said like, please you also audition. And when I auditioned, I never wanted to do it. When I did it, Vikas really liked it, and he really insisted that you have to do it. And and for me, when I read the script, it was something I've personally gone through. It whether it is rejection from the family, whether it's harassment from the police, whether how people in general treat you, and also a mother which is in me. I always wanted to be a mother, and this character was something which kind of fulfilled what all I wanted to show and tell people. Because for very long time, and even till date, I see a lot of transgender character which are not real. I mean, they are caricature of transgender person. So, and for me, acting as a being anarchally was so real that it wasn't any attempt, extra attempt and effort which I needed to put. I was so natural. Or let's say they gave me my dialogue, I said it, and they said perfect, and most of the takes were like first take. And of course, and this is there now.
That sort of portrayal, I definitely know as a viewer and a lover of films that it has definitely come from personal experiences and the trauma that your body has faced. But obviously, there is a huge amount of misunderstanding about transgender. And of course, the government is becoming softer and they are coming out with rules. But I don't know how much of that really applies in the real world. So, Rudrani, just wanted to understand a little bit about, when you say that in films they portray the hijra community in not the way, it is not very humanizing at many levels. And, every time they need to portray, they have to do it with that loud clap, right? Because there is an association of hijras and the clapping, right, that goes on. So, explain to my listeners a little bit more, because it's such a vast subject, and many of us are in the class. We're not sure. What is it that happens? Is it at birth that you get to know that you're not a man or a woman? Because I think when we are very young, we often experiment with our bodies, and as a young child, we sometimes ask, many children, they'll ask the other boy to show their penis, or a woman or a little girl to show the vagina, and you're a man or a woman. And many children do that. Yeah. So this whole identification that happens as a transgender, what is the whole process? Of course, family rejection, because there's such a social stigma attached to it, which my heart bleeds for. So I would like to know a little bit more, about the whole thing about the family rejection, and the body, the trauma that the body goes through. So all of that would be lovely to hear from you, Maya Narkali.
No, see, I mean, yes, you're so correct that there is so much of misinformation about, transgender community. And also there is, ideas and prejudice people do have about, trans community. And the worst part is whenever they want to work with them or they want to create something, with a transgender character, or associate them, they never ask them that how do you feel and what is the reality. There is no research, it is just the idea which has been there for a very long time. And I think all of us are conditioned in a way that we have to believe this is what the reality is. But as you also said, the government is changing, and I also see presently how the young generation are, they are questioning, they are not going to believe things what has been said by parents. But I don't blame them, because this is how the system worked. I mean, for example, my parents, if they were afraid and they were a bit reluctant of me being self identifying as a transgender person, they always believe that transgender person are evil, somebody who kidnaps children, who do bad things, they're aggressive. But they do not know what are the reasons. I mean, they have not even, you know, spoken to anyone. They just believe in something, and this is how they create, stuff, and maybe films and articles, or just, gossip. So this is a problematic situation. See, my personal life, I come from a family where I was rejected, but I'm reconnected again.
Do you think the reconnection has happened because of your success?
I think so. I think so, because when in the beginning, when I didn't I self I started exploring, and I was not comfortable with how I was raised and how people used to treat me. For example, I went to boys' school, and imagine where going to a boys' school was so tough for me, because I was made to do thing which I never liked. For example, all the boys were playing soccer, football, and they wanted me to, my sports coach, they wanted me to participate equally the way they were. But I never felt comfortable. It's not that games, few games, some games are for like boys and few for girls, but sometimes the whole situation, the whole atmosphere is you don't belong there. You feel so uncomfortable because people keep questioning that how you behave, how you talk, how your gestures are. I was very feminized, from the very beginning, from my childhood. I used to uh, apply my mother's makeup. One time I remember I also tried wearing her bra. So it was very different from the other boys who were talking something else. Their agenda was totally different, and I was in the whole group of 45 children in my class. I was one who was targeted because I was feminized. And it was not only the school thing, even outside of the school, I faced the same kind of a thing. People wanted, people always question me that, Rudrani, I mean, at that time, my name was something else. They said, like, why are you behaving like this? This is not normal. And, and they also said, sometimes that hijras will come and they'll take you because, you're acting like them. And a lot of people believe that hijras and transgender people are intersex, and in medical language you can say intersex or hermaphrodites. But it's not that. I mean, people who are born with one sex, they do not identify the same gender role assigned to them. So that was my situation, and a lot of people go through this. And so imagine for a young child who is already in so much of trouble understanding himself, herself, and on top of that, when the whole world comes and blames you for the thing that you are doing, that you are someone who do not fit in. So it gives you a lot of mental pressure that I am not okay. And I used to think that I am the only one child in this entire world born like this. And I also, to be very honest, I also tried attempting uh, uh, suicide when I was in class 9, because it was unbearable. It was such a difficult, that how do I face, how I have to go, next day again to the school. Then again, boys will come and they'll tease me, and they'll of course also harass me in their own way. So it is difficult, and on top of that, you can't even talk to your teachers about it. When you spoke to your teacher and you tell that your teacher, then teacher will say that, oh, this is your fault. I mean, why are you behaving like this? When you go to, you come back home, you tell your parents, the parents will say the same thing. And we live in a society where, in your family, you don't take decisions just because how you feel. Most of the time your decision comes from your, how, what really your relatives want, what your neighbors want, what society want. So it is difficult, but thank god I finished my education. I did not, though I was a very feminized person at that time, but I wanted to finish my education, because one thing was very clear, that my mother told me that if you want to be successful, and you want to be safe, and you want to do good in life, you need to finish your education. And it really helped. When I say my parents rejected, I think not entirely. My mother was always on my side. She supported me. And I remember one of the time when, I very recently, just 5 years, I left my home when I was living with my parents. And I almost, I transitioned. And um, I do have a lot of hijra friends, and my mother was celebrating her birthday, and she said, like, "Are you inviting your friends?" I said, "I don't know whether I should invite or not." And she said, like, "Why? What happened?" I told her that my all the friends are, trans or queer or gay people. And I said, like, I don't know what neighbors will say, and other people, guests will be coming. And my mother said, you don't have to worry about it, and you don't have to answer anyone, because you're my child. And if something happens to me, and if I need someone, I think I those people will not come. You will be there for me. So it gave me this thing, that okay, there is someone who understand, who support. But of course, in the beginning, for any parent, it may be difficult. It can be a difficult situation.
When I listen to you, I know that you've been very fortunate. I'm sure your parents would have come to this understanding. Your mother, at a very very later stage, it doesn't happen immediately because, like most homes, they want what they perceive to be normal is a male or a female, and they don't understand anything beyond that. But when I recall, I grew up actually my formative years in Shillong, and then after that, my main years of experience of becoming the human being that I am was in Delhi. And I've grown up in a government colony, and I remember whenever there's a child, there are the hijras who come in and they sing and dance. And if there is a child who's born a hijra, the child is immediately taken away, because sometimes they get the record from the hospitals also. And so there is a guru who will obviously initiate you into the entire community. And was that also a process for you, Rudrani? And the name has Rudrani has come to you from your guru, or has this always been your name?
We need to talk about this. First of all, this is what is there, and people believe that, child is born intersex, or, you call them hijras or mapet, mapet hijra.
Yes, the Mapet
So
Hijra,
hijras will
yes.
come, and, they'll check the genitalia of the child, and if it is an intersex child, they'll take the child. It is possible, but how many children are born intersex? The first question is, you know, till date of I'm 42, 43 right now. I know thousands and thousands of, transgender people. And in them, I know only one or two people who were born intersex, and they do not identify themselves as a hijra. One of the intersex person, he identify himself as a man, and another intersex person, I know she identify herself as a woman. But other people whom I'm talking about, thousand other people who are my friends, family, closely I'm associated with, and they are my part of family, and they're my aunties, they're my gurus, they're my disciples, they're my chelas, they're my sisters. So it is a family, but it is not that, you know, if only intersex child is born, who goes to a hijra clan and become a part of hijra family and have a guru. It There are many people who were born with one sex, and they were never able to connect with this, the gender assigned to the sex they were born with. So for example, someone like me who was born as a male child, a doctor said I'm a male child, but when I grew, I never, felt like a boy or a male, because I always felt that there's something terribly wrong with, my body. What earlier, as I said, I thought like I believe that I am the only one person
Did you hate
born
your
in this
body?
world. Yes, of course, I hated at a
Yeah.
time where, I wanted to be a, woman, and I was having something, I was having a body, I was having a part in, you know, my body which I never felt belonged to me. And later, of course, I went through feminization process, my surgeries, all those happen. But for a very long time, till you're not 18, for let's say, even after 18, when you do not have resources, you do not have much information, you do not have doctors, you don't have money to go for surgery, you feel very uncomfortable. Of course, even after 18, I could have taken my decision, but where was the money to go through, all of this, for the transition? So it's not literally hating a body, but sometimes you feel uncomfortable with few things. So it is not only my situation, but it is situation of all the transgender people I have known.
Oh,
Some
so
of them
many
have gone
times.
through surgery, some of them have not been able to go through, have surgery because they don't
Surgery
have
is
enough
illegal,
resources.
right? Rudrani, surgery is illegal in India. Okay.
Surgeries are not illegal now, as things are working in. See, if you go in the past, of course there were ways how there used to be a surgeries by somebody who is quack. It was something which was very awful, painful, no
Yes, yes.
anesthesia, nothing.
Mhm.
But now, as medical science is progressing, and people do have information, so there are doctors who operate, but you have to go through some process, that where you have to go to a psychiatrist, you need to get a certificate of your GID, which is gender identity disorder, which they usually say. So
What a
and then
shame. What a shame to use that word, gender identity disorder. I think we are disordered as a society and as humanity to even have such terms. And, I mean, if I am to live for another 10 years, I will go on and on being the voice for the marginalized, because as a woman, I too feel marginalized, Rudrani. So we are on the same page. And there are times that I've cursed myself for being a thinking woman, because I may not go through the physical trauma, uh, like you have, but I have had my own share of trauma. So I kind of completely understand that. And you know this breaks my heart. I just need to know a little bit, maybe for our listeners, about the guru and the chela and the system that is there among the community of the hijras in India. Because I read this in a book of Dominic Lapierre, in City of
mhm,
Joy, and that stayed back with me. I think I was in class 9, and I kept rereading that book. And it is, there are parts in that book that makes your heart cry for the way the castration is done, because it's done by a
mhm,
quack. And so I'm so happy to hear this, that that today there are anesthesia and there is so many other things to reduce the pain. uh,
mhm.
I mean, I'm not even talking about the mental pain right now, I'm talking about the physical pain, Rudrani. So Rudrani, a little bit, maybe for our listeners to understand as to how the guru and the chela system works.
One thing which I am very proud of, that India is a country where we do have this, system where as a transgender person you can be a part of a family, and there is somebody who can guide you, who can mentor you, and who can support you mentally, emotionally, and always be there for you. But if you go to European countries and other countries, they don't have such structures. So the good thing about India is we do have this Guru Chela Parampara. We do have this, whole matriarchy where you do have one senior person. You go to them and you choose your guru. It's not guru. It is both the ways. You see, me as a Rudrani, I found my guru, and when she realized that I can fit in and I can be part of her family, she made me her disciple. So it is a system, and I am very thankful for a lot of young trans people or people who are gender non-conforming at some time. They do have this structure where they can go be part of a family. Maybe there is not much resources available or much scope there, but at least to survive and to be under a roof where you can be protected. For let's imagine if I'm a transgender person of 18 year and I've been thrown out of the family structure of hijra gharana, I'll be on roads. I'll be maybe I'll be murdered, maybe I'll be raped. A lot of bad things can happen to me. So we do have this structure of we can go, maybe I can learn a toli badhai, where you go for ceremonies where there is new wedding
Child
happen and
born.
new baby is
Hmm.
born, where you go, you bless them, and you
Yes.
take money from them. And there are other ways, how transgender people have survived by doing sex work or begging. But of course, in under this structure, they are somehow protected. Though now things are changing. Even hijra gurus do understand that not all the transgender person want to go, do toli batai, the cultural occupation, or they want to beg. When you talk about guru chela parampara, the guru and disciple thing, in India, we do have this structure of hijra families. It is entirely a matriarchy where only a person who self-identify as a trans woman can be part of it. And it's not that any random person can say that I'm a hijra person. To be hijra or to be part of this family, you have to be disciple of a guru. And I feel very proud of the kind of structure we have. This is how we have been protecting our own kinds. Because if you talk about West and other European countries, they don't have such structures. In India, for example, somebody who's thrown out of their house, or been disowned because the child is very effeminate and do not fit into the gender binary, they go be part of this hijra family where they are protected. They learn things. They do have mentors, they're seniors, and there are people from their own community who can teach them how to survive. Because if you see, you talk about what all transgender people have, there are not much resources from education, from your jobs, your health. You don't have anything. So you, even if there are all of these things, transgender people are absolutely rejected, and they don't get all of these resources. So these hijra families have adopted all those transgender kids who were rejected by the family, society, and the society. They have been part of this hijra family. They have learned how to survive by maybe the cultural occupation, which is going for weddings, to bless the new wedded couple, or to bless by blessing newborn child, or doing sex work, or uh, begging at traffic signals. So this maybe this was only what was available, and this is how they have survived. But in other countries, if you talk about if somebody who's been thrown out because they don't fit as the gender binary, and we do have this structure where the kids, I mean children, transgender children, and people like me are protected.
I'm really happy to hear this because yes, I agree with you that in India we do still have this whole family structure, and and mother, the as much as that I have like two minds on how mothers are really put on a pedestal, but yes, definitely motherhood is revered in our culture, and I'm sure it is of great help. But just to make it a little more fun, I need to know about the modeling agency that you started. Is there an incident that you'd like to share with us, and that would really be good fun to listen to, from you?
it see, my life is something, everything, I never planned anything. It all happened because of, something happened which made me realize that, this is what I need to do. So I remember it was my birthday, and I wanted a small book a small restaurant so that I can throw a party. But when I entering a mall where this restaurant was, I was not allowed to enter this mall. And one thing they said on my face was, "आप जैसे लोगों के लिए कुछ नहीं है." And it made me thought, like, what is all this mall about? It is about fashion, beauty, brands, clothes, makeup, a good place to eat. How I, as a transgender person, cannot be part of it? And I decided that very day that, one day we'll do something that maybe, we'll be inside this mall, invited as somebody who can really, maybe our posters will be there, or maybe, somebody from our own community who will be working there as, selling products, or somebody who's a beauty expert, someone.
So, Rudrani, it's very interesting that you say this to me because I have rebooted my career actually after a very long break. I started, when I was 47 years old, when most people were just constantly telling me that I should sit down and sit back. And I was extremely troubled to see so many transgenders, on, these traffic signals begging. And I just felt so wrong. I felt that I was being wrong and I was part of this whole circus of, I stood guilty in my own mind. And I began my reboot back with my first film, which was done during Durga Puja. I'd seen, I'm a Bengali, and you having been raised in Karsiong, you'd also know how it's a very big festival. And I
Oh,
would
Dasai
like,
is a big thing.
yeah, yeah. Dasara is a very big thing, yeah, And
Yeah.
it's an inclusive festival because I really like to believe that, people from all strata, we sit down together and we eat the bhog. You don't know who's rich, who's poor, who's what, it's a community festival. But there were, few hijras who were there and they were not being allowed right near the Devi's altar. And that just really fucked my mind, And I just was restless after that. And I stopped, at a it happened 1 year before that, and the next year, I made a film called "Faith Has No Gender," and it is so interesting, Rudrani, that I saw a bunch, three of them who became my friends and who are my friends right now. The guru and the two chelas, and they were drinking a cup of tea, and I stopped at the light and signal, and I said. I walked up to them and I said that I'd like to make a small little video with you, and I think they looked at me and just this whole myth that people have of being aggressive, nothing. They gave me a hug. They gave me their bangle and we fixed the address. And I gave them the sari and the clothing and they came home and we did the entire film, which is there on my Murimo vlog. And along with my mother, we did the ushering of Ma Durga, the puja, because according to me, what Durga represents motherhood, and she's the daughter that's come back to the father's home. She's a mother to all her children, and so they came in and we did the whole shoot and we remained in touch for a long time till they moved. And from that film, I got my first second film for Karnataka Election Commission because that was the film that I'd sent out. So they were my lucky charm, Rudrani. And yeah, and they came home and we've had teas and lunches together. And
Mama, I can tell you one thing for sure, that transgender people, as far as I know, and I'm not quoting for myself, but people I have known, that if somebody comes to them and they don't threaten them and they want to be friends, I think transgender people have given so much to them. It's not only love, it's unconditional love. And they always wanted to connect, and they always,
yes,
till
they
date, they always
always
they
want
do
to
want to
connect.
connect. And yeah,
Absolutely. Yes, I agree with you,
but
Rudrani.
it just I don't know why other people see them as some kind of
That's
ghost or some kind of alien. I remember one of the time I went to a news channel studio, and my introduction, how this news and the news anchor started, was
it
like,
was done by the
people
British,
from
Rudrani. India was very
different, and
inclusive. The Britishers did that for
no,
us.
I totally agree with you. I
And that's what
absolutely
we
agree with you. I
continued. Our literature, mythology has got trans people, you know?
it's not only about transgender. See, it's not only about transgender, but if you watch television, how much of how many commercial you get to see of fairness product and those kind of, still we are stuck with those British ideas which were imposed, and now they have gone back and they have become more inclusive, and they changed their laws and everything, but we have remained the same. I don't know, but it is taking time. It is a slow change. The best thing I notice today, that young people do question. Young people do want to be friends with the trans community, and they are questioning the norms.
Yes, thank you so much, Miri Anarkali, Rudrani, for being on today's podcast. This is an honor for me to have you on my podcast. You made my day. And I'm really hoping that I meet you in person whenever I come down to Delhi, or you come to Bangalore. You will have to stay in my house with me. We have so much to talk about. But before I end, I will do a small introduction and talk a little bit more about you. That Rudrani is also the founder member of the first community-based organization, CBO, in Delhi called Mitr Trust, which started in 2005. It works with issues of men who have sex with men, transgender, and hijras. She's the founder in India's first modeling agency called Bold. She's also an actor, like I said, Maya Anarkali, a model. She represents India at Global Fund for HIV, AIDS, Tuberculosis and Malaria. As trans key affected population, she's also managing committee member of INFOSEM India network. In the field of HIV, gender, sexuality, health, human rights, and overall inclusion, she's been working for 20 plus years in this field. So thank you so much, Rudrani. Before we end the podcast, let me just begin by saying loud claps and slow claps for all that you've done. And I hope there are many, many more Rudranis and many, many more podcasts and many, many more spaces in mainline media where they make us realize how stupid and foolish we are when we divide and marginalize people based on their sexuality. Thank you so much for being in today's episode.
Thank you, Mohua. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank your entire team. And thank you for your podcast, that you guys are inclusive. And I hope that there will be a time there where everywhere, people will not question. Every shop, there will be one transgender person as a salesperson. Transgender person will be doctors. Transgender person will be, politician. They'll be everywhere. So I think people like you not only, tell our stories, but encourage us and give us more power, that we do exist and we do have all the rights.
Yes.
That I always say that if we don't want more than what you guys and journal people are getting, then we don't even want anything lesser than them. So thank you so much for this podcast.
Thank you, Rudrani. Look forward to meeting you in person, and it's been an honor. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
To you, our dearest listeners, you can find us on your favorite streaming services. Find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and of course, all other major streaming services. With loads of love, we are Moody Mo Awaz Podcast, where Hatke is hot.